the nerds are so beholden to a subject matter that they want it presented in a new medium exactly as it is. And Douglas knew that that's not how you do it.
And the other thing so
these people, they're all like so gung-ho about the books, and they're like, well, what is this John Lithgow character with the spider leg, the mechanical spider legs thing?
John Malkovich,
excuse me.
It's quite all right.
Like, what is this shit? That's not from the books.
Yeah.
But, you know, like...
But he is in the books, just not in that way. He's slightly... It's so different in the book.
Yeah, it's...
But it doesn't
It's
matter.
okay. It's allowed to be its own thing. Douglas set that up as soon as he wrote the books by making them different in some aspects from the radio dramas.
And specific to that example, it is a change that you make because you're making a movie. Douglas realized, well, there's elements about this character. I don't think it's Ulan Kalufid, but the character that Malkovich plays.
I can't remember his name.
But is, you know, the head of this religion. He there's funny jokes in other books and he goes, there's elements of it that could work in this to get us from this point to this point. We could work it. And also, those nerds, those Hitchhikers nerds, they fail to recall that before the movie, Douglas was constantly changing the story.
Yeah.
Constantly.
And I believe that the roots of the movie, like, come from Douglas Adams.
He did the first several drafts of the screenplay.
Yeah, and it's from, like, it came out well after he died.
Because some people said that his screenplay credit was nefarious. They're like, no, they're taking passages from the radio and they're putting... No, he actually penned the screenplay.
Exactly.
It was not like they fucked him over after his death or anything like that.
Which anyone that's familiar with WGA rules knows that, like, that credit, you know, they have very specific regulations on how people are credited.
Right. So you really couldn't pull that off.
I mean, even whether you use the word and or an ampersand is, like, very important and meaningful.
Yeah.
So if you see an ampersand between two people's names,
they wrote it together.
On a script, they wrote it together. If you see the word and, which I'm sure if we looked up The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie right now, you would see Douglas Adams, the word and then other people.
Probably.
And that means that the person before the and wrote a draft, and the people after the and made further revisions after that draft.
Quentin Tarantino had to get some kind of special favor or something like that to get his name off of the Natural Born Killer script, because that's how it would have been. So that's why it says story by Quentin Tarantino, because he actually did write several drafts.
Right. And if Douglas Adams had not written a script for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it would have said story by or based on characters created by.
It did say that too. It did say that too.
Speaking of other British comedy, very similar to Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, one of my super favorites. I've always looked at it as the fantasy version of, like, he's the fantasy version of Douglas Adams sci-fi, you know? I just watched an adaptation of some of his work called The Watch. Very different take on it from the books. And at the beginning, it says, inspired by characters created by Sir Terry Pratchett. Because it is such a departure. They couldn't do it.
It's so different, they couldn't even argue that it was...
Right, it's characters he created, it's a world he created, but it's like a very different take. Just very different. Like his daughter, not down with it.
Maybe we should talk about the influence that Hitchhikers had on us in terms of our desire to be writers.
Well, I mean, we straight ripped it off.
Yes. We had an ongoing project that we would pass, you know, like a Word file, I think it was, or, you know, some kind of, or we did notebooks too.
WordPad?
Was it WordPad?
Whatever the
Microsoft,
the free Microsoft version of Word.
No, we also had I had
I think it started its life as a WordPad file.
Yeah, but anyway, the point is we were making this book and we kept passing stories, and the book was called The Great Big Book of Stig. Our idea was that Stig
look at the universe through the eyes of space dust.
Meaning, and the idea that, you know, we're all, all these characters that are written in the book, they know how vast the universe is. They know they don't matter.
We did it differently. It wasn't
Slightly.
Where Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was a narrative that followed a set of characters.
About a book, or around about a book.
Right. I mean, the characters had the book as a...
Right.
Whatever. The Great Big Book of Stig, A Look at the Universe, The Eyes of Space Dust, was set up as a collection of short stories. We wanted to write... We basically wanted a framework to write any kind of short story we wanted.
Right.
And the Great Big Book of Stig contained them all under the premise that these were integral stories that were necessary for the understanding of
space travel,
the society of the universe at large.
And I remember we had some idea that the corporation that made Stig Book it had some kind of connection to the gods of the universe and the center of the universe that ran everything, and they were keeping an eye on planets that were like learning how to get past their own solar systems, and it's like, oh, this planet needs a copy of the book, so somebody would go to Earth and leave. But the idea of calling them, I will say that the ideas behind it, maybe not the execution, but the ideas were funny. The idea that because our intro to that book was very condescending, like, congrats on being able to walk 2 inches, proverbially, in the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
You're going to need this.
Yeah. Also, we had this whole thing about how Earth was the most common name of a planet in the entire universe.
That's right. It was the Earth Sol edition.
Right.
Because that was the solar system.
Yeah. And I think our idea was that... I remember what it was.
Earth was like the gym.
Most languages in the universe defined the word Earth to mean a great big rock we all live on.
Right.
I
something
think.
like that. Yeah.
And you people define it as dirt.
Yeah.
But still named your planet that for some reason.
Yeah. You have such a low opinion of your planet, you call it dirt.
Yeah. There was that. But like, it really was just a loose framework for us to be able to tell whatever kind of short stories we wanted. Because, we did have these these universe spanning stories that it had to do with gods at the center of the universe, like you mentioned, and the creation of the universe, and a story that I wrote called Rebirth and Splat. But we also had like these dumb little stories that could have no effect on anything.
But the joke being that a planet like Earth or that was behind the times, it's not that there is no significance. It's just that there's no significance for you to see because you're just not there yet.
Right. But like, I remember one of the dumbest stories. It was like 6 lines long or something. And it was this Old West story called How Sixth Sense Calhoun Got His Name.
Mm-hmm. I like that one. I remember because it was something like he killed somebody because he didn't get his sixth sense change.
Yeah, something like that.
For like a root beer or something. Sixth Sense Calhoun.
How
I think that started because you said Sixth Sense Calhoun, just like while we're walking down the street or something like that. He just blurted out like, jet boots for America, like just saying it.
I don't know. But like that somehow is important enough that every planet in the universe really needs to know about it.
Yeah. And we tried our best to separate it from Hitchhikers as much as possible, but the one thing that, looking back on those stories, that was clear that Douglas had in spades over us, among all the other stuff, and, because we had some funny stuff in there too, but the real thing was that we could not figure out an actual narrative, but he actually, not only did he have narratives for these books, but he managed to continue the narrative without destroying old stuff. He improved on it, as we mentioned, but he just kept building and building this narrative with multiple characters, and I don't think if we had all the time in the world, we could have done that.
I also don't think we were interested in doing that. We were really fans of short form.
At the time, we were a big sketch.
Fiction at the time, yeah.
Big on sketch back then.
And that's what we wanted to do. We could have come up with something not derivative of Hitchhiker's Guide to...
I don't know how...
create a framework for a bunch of random short stories.
I don't know how possible that would have been. I think we would have tried to.
I mean...
do something different.
Ideally, we would have been less bitey.
Maybe.
Or less obviously bitey, at least.
Maybe. But, so let's talk more about actual hitchhikers.
Yes.
But yeah, it's one of I'll talk about a fun time when we remember when we had the marathon viewing at Janine's for like Christmas Eve or
of the BBC TV series
show. Yeah.
Which I mean, I think still holds up.
It does.
And it's got some real janky effects and props, and Marvin is very strange looking, but I do still love it. I think it holds up. It features Douglas Adams walking nude into the ocean.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? Let's just show it. Here's a clip of that. Enjoy.
Many were increasingly of the opinion that they'd all made a big mistake in coming down from the trees in the first place. And some said that even the trees had been a bad move and that no one should ever have left the oceans.
And this is Mystery Science Theater, so you gotta love it. Watch
And
out
mine
for
says
snakes.
world's greatest mom.
And indeed you are. Excuse me. What else can we talk about? What else can we say about good old hitchhikers?
Well, I mean,
I
really want to talk more about the cross-platform multimedia aspect of it.
Go for it.
Because, I mean, it's just... I think that it's really important.
He was one of the first to be like into the CD-ROM games, wasn't he? Like,
Oh, yeah. He was
Starship Titanic?
He was on the front line of all kinds of shit. He's like, well, let's turn Hitchhiker's Guide into a text-based adventure game a la Zork.
Yeah.
And God, am I fucking dating myself right now? But holy shit, like...
I'm dating myself by saying CD-ROM.
Zork, I had that on my Apple IIc. This is a computer with no mouse.
The Apple IIc.
And no desktop.
Wow.
It was fully command line based, and I had Zork 3 on that. And literally, if you don't know what a text-based adventure game is, you have a prompt that describes a scenario to you, and you type in commands of what you would like to do, and you go like, so the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text-based adventure game is an adventure game in which you are going through the adventure of Arthur Dent. And when you find yourself in the Vogon ship, in the hold, toward the beginning of the game, you have to somehow get your hands on a babelfish so that you can hear what's happening. Or babelfish, however you would like to pronounce it.
It's pronounced Babel. It would be Babel if there were two B's.
Well, it's short for Babylon. It takes its name from the Tower of Babylon, which fell. And
then it should be spelled Babyl fish.
Sure. Anyway, moving on. So it's this thing where like there's a vending machine with the babelfish in it, and you hit the button.
It's in a vending machine. That's funny.
And you hit the button, and
wait, hold on, because the whole thing about the babelfish is it's like one of the greatest inventions of all times, and it proves that God's not real, and it's in a vending machine. I love that. I'm sorry, I love that.
So you hear the Vogon announcement. It's garbled nonsense, and you get the babelfish out of the machine, but you hit the button and it shoots across the room, slaps into the wall, and falls down a grate. And
so much for that.
You basically have to try over and over again to work out all the various steps. You have to use a towel. You have to cover up the grate. You have to like do all this stuff just to get the babelfish and put it in your ear. And if you take too many turns, you just get evacuated into space, and then you have to go back and start over again, the process, with what you've learned. And all of this is text. There's no visuals to help guide you.
I bet you Douglas Adams was a major part of all the gameplay.
Oh, he absolutely was, yes.
That sounds like him.
And so, like, with Zork, I recall, we had one of those big desk blotter calendars, and as a kid, I had to use the back of it, and I had to draw a map out of everywhere that I went, because, you're just like, go north. And then it describes where you are and which other directions you can go. And so, like, you cannot map this out in your head. It's an impossibility. So that's text-based adventure games, and Douglas Adams was like, it was probably the first, maybe even the only licensed text-based adventure game based on a previous